It's episode 316.
Today we are talking menopause, but before menopause, we are talking postpartum depression. So, how that affects you as the woman, but also your spouse as the man.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Prime Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Skip Wyss, and I have the beautifully, wonderfully radiant Dr. Julie Wyss with me today. How are you?
I am well.
Yeah? That's very, very good. I like how you're looking. We were just talking about pilly sweaters, so this is all fantastic. Good stuff. Today, Dr. Julie, we're talking about postpartum. And I really want to run into this because this is the time of year where spring is coming. And our last episode was talking about pregnancy and sciatica and low back pain and all these things. And I want to talk about postpartum and how these moms in particular can really help out their psyche. And if it's okay with you, I would like you to actually lead this one.
Well, I think with postpartum, nobody talks about it. And I think that is what the problem is. You can read all of the birthing books. Everybody shares their helpful information. But I really don't recall anyone even still talking about postpartum depression. Depression maybe will come up just in passing of, oh yeah, I felt this, or maybe I did this, or yeah, I was a little cry, or I just didn't know what to do. But nobody actually talks about it, which then leaves it lingering, and moms don't know what to expect. And it can be like on a whole scale of severity. If somebody maybe had some mental health or had some depressive struggles before being pregnant, with the hormones and after having baby, it can just be like an incredible roller coaster. And it makes me think of a movie like with multiple personalities, because that's literally what a mom can feel like. That like 1 minute we'll be having a conversation, she'll be happy, and she'll hear something, see something, smell something, and all of a sudden like it can be pure rage. Or all of a sudden just like a breakdown and shut down, or just start crying for no incredible reason. Watching it, you're like, what the heck is going on? But living it is a completely different thing, because you don't actually sometimes comprehend what's happening. You don't realize that it's happening, or it's happening and you're like, what the heck is going on? Sometimes it can be like an out-of-body experience.
Well, wow. Okay. That's why I'm having you go with this one on your own with me next to you, but I'm just going to ask you questions, because men experience postpartum as well, but it's from a different angle. Men out there, all of you, even if you're later on in your relationships, let's say women, I think you go through two parts of postpartum depression. Most women go through baby blues and postpartum depression, and then in their 40s and into their 50s, they go through a form of it again, going through menopause. Perimenopause, which can be really, really hard on women. Really hard.
And I think that's like what they call, what's it called? Like your 40-year or your 50.
Midlife crisis?
Midlife crisis.
Okay.
And I think if people would maybe, that midlife crisis, that is your hormones dramatically changing, because there's a huge shift that's happening.
Well, I'm going to give somebody a little bit of math right now. I'm 42. Dr. Julie is just a couple months older than me. And I think that it is a tremendous change for women when they hit perimenopause in their early 40s versus mid 40s, early 50s. And what it does then is women start questioning everything in their early 40s, wondering why their entire body's changing again, because it changed so much when you were pregnant in your 20s and 30s. Some women are having babies in their 40s. And then now you start going into perimenopause, and it changes the whole game. And husbands and guys out there that are dealing with this with their spouses, it's hard. It's an emotional roller coaster because you don't know where you stand as a husband. We don't know, and I don't mean this as I come home and Julie's in a rage. She never is. She's probably one of the most calm, amazing individuals because I'm the one that's very emotional. I mean, I'm an October baby. I'm very emotional, and I am. But because of that, Julie equals me out and balances me out. But when I come home, I just don't know sometimes what aspect you're going to be in. Are you going to be super happy? Are you going to be super sad? Are you in between and not just feeling like yourself? I think that's really hard. How can a husband deal with that? Because it's the same thing as postpartum depression.
I think we need to back up because if we're talking like that, this isn't anything that we ultimately have any control over.
Right.
And this is where people are, like do this, do that. Like these are hormones. And so we need to understand physically, chemically, emotionally what's actually intrinsically happening within our bodies to then be able to process it. Because if we start to try to do all these other ancillary things sometimes, or to add more things in, or to just brush it off like it's no big deal, that's when I think things get blown out of proportion, or it's not dealt with and it turns into something that it was ever intended for it to be.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense because I think both sides are trying to figure it out. One, most men out there, we truly care and we want our wives to be happy. But if we can't help it, if we can't find a way to provide a solution, it's frustrating.
So, and I think what's changed over the last maybe 40, 50 years is it's not the maybe old adage of the structure that a housewife and then the man is the one working. And I think that because the roles have changed and that this is like vice versa, that the husband or the man stays home, I think that it's a structure of that there's just so much increased stress and demand. And if we just think psychologically in physiology, a woman's brain isn't necessarily set up to be able to process that way, just like a man's brain is set up to process a certain way.
It is.
And when a woman maybe doesn't have all of the receptors to maybe handle and process the stress that she's going through to start with, and then all of a sudden we start perimenopause and then into menopause, that's when sometimes things literally fall off the rocker.
Yeah.
And a relationship that was super solid is all of a sudden on the rocks and you don't know what the heck happened. And like one day you just wake up and you're like, you're not the person I married. And then, but is it worth saving, or can it be saved? And I think if there isn't more awareness and speaking and discussion of, okay, this is what happens after we have a baby for both the man and the woman, of like set the expectation. I mean, like, and go all out. Like, these are all the crazy things that you can feel and like what you're thinking. Cause it's just like, you want to kill people and you just want to leave your baby and do things. And you want to do these like ugly things that you've maybe never considered or thought about in your life. And that's the chemical component. And if a person already has those struggles, that's where it can be like highlighted and just totally be blown out of proportion. So we have that during like the post-baby years, right? If we're having multiple babies. But then it also comes back up in the perimenopause, the menopause.
It does.
And like I think that's just like the hat that a woman wears. But to think that a man, like that your hormones don't change, they also change. That's when testosterone is dropping, and then the woman is looking at the man to be strong and protection. And then if they're weepy and don't know like where their manhood is, like that's where that balance is off. And again, then it's just like, well, you're not the person I married. And then I think that's where the marriages struggle and they fall apart. And you look at the kids, well, then you wait till the kids are older, which is then when you're like 50s, maybe mid 50s, late 40s, and then the marriage just dissolves.
Yeah, you see a very high divorce rate out of couples
because you
that have
wait
been
for the
together for
children to
20
be out of the
years.
home.
Yep.
So I think there needs to be the discussion of postpartum and how the hormones and the rage, and like lay it out of, okay, this is like the charts of all the faces you may see, all the phases that it might be, but it needs to be revisited again come perimenopause and menopause. And I think if more people talked about it and understood, and you can think, oh, that's not going to be me. But if you at least talk about it, it begins to have an awareness in your heads. Maybe when you see others going through it, it's kind of like, oh.
I'm going to stop you for just a second. It is going to be you. Every woman will go through perimenopause and menopausal changes. Every woman will. Okay? And you can't avoid it. Now, there's camps that'll say that we can do peptide therapies and we can do estrogen, estradiol, all these other bioidentical hormones, which they're trying to change the aging process by adding peptides and hormones in to trick your body or keep it from aging. But aging is a natural process that happens over time, and we're meant to age. We're not meant to stop age.
Those are the ancillary man-made things to make us feel or do certain ways, feel certain things, not how our body is designed.
And I think you're missing a very, very important life process when you do that. Because men are always trying to change more youth. They're trying to chase men that are in their 20s and 30s. And it's bombarded in our face with sex drive and erectile dysfunction and all of these things that are physical in nature, not mental and emotional well-being. And it's the same thing when moms come out of pregnancy. They deal with the same marketing things that men deal with when we're in our 40s and 50s. Feel better, have more sex with your spouse. Why can't you feel more physically connected to your spouse? It's all physically related, but nobody really talks about the emotional and mental side of it. Or they just kind of throw it to the wayside like, 6 weeks after this, we don't have to worry about it.
But that's the key. If we can focus on the physical and the mental health of the person, those other things happen.
They do happen, and because it comes back to, and we've talked about this, and we'll put this at the end, another episode for you to go to. We've talked about reducing stress in marriages and increasing sex drive in women versus increasing sex drive in men. We had multiple. Some of our most listened to podcasts are on this,
which is clearly an issue.
It's stress. And what is one of the biggest stressors in a relationship early on is when we have our first baby. Massive change. Now, let's dive back into a little bit of postpartum, because I'm the one that brought up all of the perimenopause stuff, because it's very similar. That's why I brought it up. And I wanted to bring it to light because the things you can do now postpartum are things that you can bring in your 40s and in your early 40s as you're going through perimenopause, and bring those skills back in to help you change with another massive hormone change in your body.
Well, and I think that's where, so if there's like a woman listening to this and she's never had kids, right, then this is going to be like that first bout of like out of body, like what the heck is happening to me?
Sure. When they go through perimenopause.
And those feelings can be that much stronger and like totally out of control, where a relationship, when it was just the two people, that all of a sudden we're going through this. And again, maybe that's where the term midlife crisis came up. Maybe it was those couples that didn't have children, maybe, or just, singles that like just went off, and like the buddy was like, hey, like what the heck, all of a sudden, like what happened?
What do you think are some of the steps now, moms postpartum? I think postpartum isn't 6 weeks. That's where it just gets cut off as this 6-week marker, because that's when your OB writes you off and gives you birth control.
That's a man-made number. Just like when we talk about raising a child and eating following certain schedules of when you go in for well baby checkups. Somebody ancillarily said 6 weeks. I'll see you in 6 weeks. And then everybody else in the practice heard 6 weeks. And that's now I'll see you in 6 weeks.
Do you want to know where I think 6 weeks came from? Tissue healing.
Yeah.
It takes 6 to 8 weeks to heal a bone. It takes 6 to 8 weeks to heal a cut, to heal a tear. And I think that's where it came from. I really do, tissue healing, because MDs, when in the 70s and 80s, when they were performing the episiotomy after episiotomy after episiotomy, and not allowing moms to get into the right birth positions, not allowing moms to do what they can to keep themselves from needing an episiotomy, which is tearing naturally.
How many times did we say episiotomy
Yeah,
in this
well,
episode?
a lot of freaking episiotomies because they're not needed, and they're not. But that's all tissue repair.
Mhm.
If you really think about it, like when I've had surgery on my knees, and seriously, when was my
just like an episiotomy?
Oh my God, I didn't say that. I mean,
feels a little different.
Well, I guess so. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. You say childbirth's horrible, but have you ever had Invisalign braces? I heard a dad say that to his wife just to get under her skin because he had Invisaligns on.
His teeth were bothering
Yeah,
him?
and he had Invisaligns on, and she goes, "You've never experienced childbirth," and he's like, "Well, you've never experienced Invisalign braces. You have no idea."
Oh my goodness, terrible. Oh, I hope he is in one piece.
What I'm saying is, stitches come out at 4 weeks generally, or 6 weeks post-op.
Yep.
That's when they come out. So it's all tissue healing. Back to the 6-week mark, you need check-ins, monthly check-ins. And if you have a really good doctor, like a chiropractor that practices family practice and takes care of you and takes care of families, you get to see them on a regular basis. If you're getting normal, good chiropractic care, they are your team.
Yeah, I mean, if you had care before, you're gonna literally bounce back. You are going to heal that much quicker after baby. But I think the struggle is people are waiting in this, like maybe people are aware of it, and they're waiting for in those first 6 weeks for the depression to show up.
Mm-hmm.
That's still like the honeymoon phase with the baby.
Oh, that glow phase, that after hour.
That's typically when there's maybe still help. That's when both the couple is still off of work, so maybe both people are still home.
Support.
It's after that 6 weeks when, whoa, all my support systems just left, moved. Maybe they're from a different state. Grandma and grandpa are gone. My significant other is back at work. And then you have the alienation of like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then all of the other things that come with it. And then wham, all of a sudden you're depressed, postpartum, and you're like, what the heck am I going to do?
Like all the support. And that is actually working in this field and being in family practice for over 16 years. That is one of the keys.
Paternity is what, 8 weeks?
Yep. Paternity leave is
6 to 8 weeks.
Paternity for husbands is 6 to 8 weeks if they get it. Maternity leave is 6 to 12 weeks. That's allotted where you don't lose your job. It's not necessarily paid. But when that support system leaves is when things get really hard. And that's the commonality to all of this, is the support for the mom.
That's why it takes a village. And that's where you need to have, like we talked about a birth team, of having all of the people included for a birth team, but there needs to be that team after baby. And it's just like we're such a culture that we need to have the gold star, that we did a good job, that we look put together, our hair is all done, but that needs to like get thrown out, because like we're talking our mental health, we're talking like the physicality of how we're going through every day. And if we can just like be humbled in ourselves and ask for help, or just when somebody, because everybody's offering and you're like, no, I'm fine. That's that song. Like, I'm fine. No, I'm not fine.
No, you're not
and
fine.
And to let those people in and help. And if it just takes a few people to say yes, then that's going to transform the entire postpartum period, because it's just going to be expected that this is how it's supposed to be, that you're supposed to raise your family in this. Like I've talked with so many moms of like building a commune. Right? But that's how, like, you have everybody around you that surrounds you with love, with no judgment, to raise the family. And as soon as that can start to happen, then we can watch the postpartum depressive, like the side effects and all of the mental health and depression just slowly begin to decrease, which then ultimately perimenopause, menopause, those marriages are that much stronger, because again, you're in this commune, you're in this community, this village of everybody that understands everybody and what's coming and what to expect. And then you've talked to your elders, you've talked to your girlfriends, you've talked to the buddies that you know what's happening. With AI, it's so easy to now get all of our information from AI and Google and to ask those questions. So we can always get the answers, but it's the how do we actually live in that moment? And that's what we need people for.
Yeah, and I think it's actually this.
Yeah.
You know, it's physical touch.
Physical touch. It's the
somebody
in person.
holding your hand,
Absolutely.
touching your shoulder,
Absolutely.
telling you it's okay, and actually having a soul-to-soul conversation with you, and that support. And men need that too. Mm-hmm. Men need to open up. They need to talk to other men. They need to not feel judged. And I think that's one of the hardest things too at 12 weeks postpartum is it's for some reason you have to have it all together. Mm-hmm. And then another hard one is trying to figure out childcare. And I think that is super hard on moms as well and dads, is if they're both working, which in common in America, half of the households have dual income. And if we have to try to find childcare for our children,
oh, it's so stressful.
It's really hard. It's super stressful. We have so many moms that come in and say, who's taking newborns? Do you know anybody that's taking newborns? And I can only imagine what that feels like, because that wasn't us. We had the blessing of being able to bring our kids with us because we're self-employed here at our office, and we had the kids. But most parents don't have that luxury, or they choose to stay home, which takes away an income from the family. Either way, there's a stress. Right. Either way. And that adds and compounds to it. Mm-hmm. And I think that is another big thing for parents, and that societal norm of, well, my kid just needs to be in daycare. Well, do they? You know, is it a financial wash? If you have your kids in daycare and it's going to cost you $800 a month, and you have two kids and it's $250 for the one that's 6 months old and it's $500 for the newborn, which is crazy, but that's how it is. It's super expensive. Mm-hmm. And is it a wash for you to go to work? Are you better off staying home? You know, that's hard on families.
I think that is the woman that gets lost. Like, as I'm thinking of this, like I'm visualizing like when we're out in the world, we're out in the community, there's the mom that's got the look, everything put together. She's prim, she's proper. Yeah. Like, she's like, whoa, that's the mom that I want. Meanwhile, she's dying in the inside.
Yep.
Right. And then you see the other mom who's barely hanging on. She is a mess. The kids are running amok, right? Mm-hmm. Dirty, crazy hair. She may just look like she's holding it on, but she's probably got it more together than that other mom. The scary part is where most of us are is in the middle.
Is that deadly middle.
And those are us that are at home, not wallowing, but struggling, mm-hmm. because we don't have anybody that we can reach out to, because we can't look like that one that's got it all together. And then we're scared that somebody's going to judge us, that we're going to look like the one that's falling apart. Mm-hmm. So we just sit at home. Mm-hmm. And we tell everybody, I'm fine. Meanwhile, you're not.
Yeah, middle ground's dangerous. Mm-hmm. And reaching out and having those communities. And this has been a really great talk, Dr. Julie. It really has, because this is something it's rarely talked about. Mm-hmm. Men get kind of passed by the wayside because we're just trying to keep it together. Men need the
support as well.
Yep, and women get cast off as well because they'll hunker down at home and try to look for a community, but they're looking for the community that sometimes isn't there. Is super judgy, and our moms feel like they're on an island even though they shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. Even though they shouldn't be. And that's where having a really good team that supports you there. And sometimes it's just healthcare. What we find in really, really successful chiropractic offices that are family-based, they have a massive community. And the reason why is the doctors are great, but it's the community that's built that allows these moms to have access to the people in need. And there's so many times at Prime Family Centers here in Green Bay where, one, we're the official sponsors of healthy pregnancies. But number two is we're the official sponsors of healthy and happy families. Mm-hmm. Because these moms and these dads schedule their appointments around other families being here. It's hilarious. but they found a community, and that's what
It's
makes
important.
it super special. Find your community. There was this old adage used to be of find your tribe, which is it's just a different way of finding your community, and who do you get along with, and who can help you be who you are. I want to thank you, Julie, for helping us raise an amazing family and do everything you do here in our office and take care of patients and manage our business. And like, you wear so many hats and way more than I own in shoes. And it's because of you, we have what we have.
It's a good thing I like wearing hats.
You're amazing and phenomenal. And there's wives out there that are like you, that are managing businesses, and then there's wives that are managing homes and staying home as well, and it's just as big a job. But I just wanted to say thank you, because you're phenomenal.
Thank you.
And I'm super blessed to have you in my life. So thank you for making my life easy. To a point.
Most days.
So everybody, please share this one. This one is super vital for moms and dads to hear. They need to hear more of this information. We're on a mission to get to over 1,000 subscribers this year, and we really, truly need your help. This is something that if you find value in this, if you find that this is actually helpful for you, or you think of somebody that it can help, remember, this isn't designed to be judgy. This is designed to just help you think of different options and think just a little bit differently about your family's health and about your health and the things that you can do to get healthy and be better.
I like that. Think differently.
Think differently. So share this with as many people as you can. We'll see you all next week, continuing on with this amazing topic. Bye, everyone.